Good morning, race fans. Today I will be reading your hottest F1 takes. I asked you all to send me your most unpopular Formula 1 opinions, the kind of stuff that would send 99% of the fandom into a coma. And I've compiled my favorites, and today we're gonna talk about them. And since we love tier lists so much on YouTube, I will also be ranking your takes based on how much I agree with them. Before we get started, I do want to clarify that this is all coming from a place of humor. I'm giving you my opinion on these takes, but that's all it is. My opinion. So please don't take it the wrong way if I disagree with you. I'm just here to try to make you laugh. Also, apologies if I mispronounce anybody's usernames. Maybe if y'all didn't have usernames that sounded like a key smash, it would be a little easier. Just a thought. Let's go over the different tiers, and to get us into the right vibe, obviously, they all had to be Ferrari themed. Our top tier is gonna be Smooth Operator. If you're in this tier, you're a smooth operator. That's all there is to say. After that, the A tier is gonna be I've never looked so good, which will be for when I generally agree with your take. In the middle, we have Copy We Are Checking, which is sort of like a neutral, no opinion space. After that, we have Stop Inventing, meaning stop inventing, you are incorrect. And the final and worst tier is going to be called Average Ferrari Fan, meaning that no one is as delusional as you. This is for takes so unhinged that they're only matched by the blind devotion of the tifosi to that sopping wet mess of a Scuderia. Must be the water. Let's start with the first hot take from @literally_Laney. Might not be unpopular, but Gabriel Bortoleto deserves so much more attention. A lot of people say the best rookies are Antonelli or Hadjar or whatever, but Gabriel's performance has been so great, even in the past too. He was literally an F3 and F2 champion. We're off to a good start because I generally agree with this take. I do still, however, think Hadjar is the rookie of the year so far, because I do generally think that he's been more consistent throughout this season. Also, he was the F2 runner-up by not that much. But I do agree that Bortoleto should not be overlooked. He's been putting on an amazing performance so far, and he's literally in a Sauber. And with a teammate who is a veteran Formula 1 driver and a point-scoring machine. So yes, I'm putting this one in the A tier. Next take is from @Kanishk_Mohan, who says, Doohan deserves a second chance considering Colapinto's performances. Now that's what I call a hot take. Honestly, as much as I love El Colapa and want more Hispanic drivers in Formula 1, we do have to admit that his performance in Alpine so far has been a little underwhelming. In fact, don't kill me, please. Jack's performance was slightly better than Franco's. Both of them have a best race finish of P13, but Doohan qualified slightly better and was also more of a threat to Pierre Gasly, although Colapinto did outqualify Gasly in Silverstone. Obviously, it's not a huge difference by any means, but I do think they have both been really close, so was it unfair of Alpine to fire Doohan? Maybe so. Do I think it's possible that Doohan will ever come back? Probably not. At least not to Alpine, as long as it's being run by the fucking godfather over here. I'm gonna put this in the neutral category. Definitely not because I don't want to anger some Argentinians. Why would you think that? Next, we have a take by @TommyWowJo7, who says, Lando deserves to win the Drivers' Championship this season. Somehow, this would be considered a hot take today, even though Lando Norris has more fans than most other drivers combined. Now, I'm not going to say that Lando doesn't deserve the title. I mean, he's been putting in some really great performances lately, but I just think Oscar deserves it more. Personally, I've been consistently more impressed by Oscar's performances as opposed to Lando's. So I'm gonna put this in Stop Inventing. Next, we have a take by @F1Legend29, who says, Senna should have been disqualified from the 1990 World Championship for intentionally crashing into Prost. Therefore, Prost should have been the 1990 champion. Going with a classic take, I see. Generally, I think I do agree here because it was a very dirty move from Senna, and even though I do love him, I would be upset if I saw another driver, say Max Verstappen, doing the same thing to someone else, so we gotta be fair here. I do think this move is slightly justifiable though, when you take into account what happened the year before at Suzuka, plus the pole position being moved off the racing line. I don't think it's totally crazy to say that it was interference from Balestre, because it is a little sus. But the move itself is still pretty dirty and, let's be honest, a shitty way to end a title fight. So yeah, agree with this one. Next, we have a take from @LouisTheFly. McLaren secretly want Lando to win the Drivers' Championship and will hamper Oscar in ways that they don't think the public will notice. Small things like box to undercut Leclerc, leaving Lando with track position at the track called Monaco without walls. Put on your tinfoil hats because we are in the presence of a conspiracy theorist. Honestly, my friend, I can't lie to you. I would low-key love for this to be true because it would make me feel really good. Like if Piastri does lose the championship, I could be like, see, the whole thing was rigged against him because McLaren was pushing him back, and it would feel really good. Unfortunately, I highly doubt it's actually true. Okay, maybe that win in Hungary was a little bit sus, but I don't think that McLaren knew for sure that the one-stop was the correct strategy. And also, like, Oscar did reach Lando at the end of the race. The only reason Oscar didn't win was because Lando defended him well. So I am going to put it in we are checking. And I guess by the end of the season, we can look back at this and decide. The next one is from @marijuana. Since nobody's actually giving any hot takes, here's one. Oh, okay. Call everyone out, I guess. Sebastian Vettel's 4 Red Bull titles are less impressive than Fernando Alonso's 2 with Renault, because Vettel spent those years in an Adrian Newey masterpiece with no real competition except his own teammate. Alonso, meanwhile, went head-to-head with Schumacher at Ferrari during peak Scarlet dominance and still won. If Alonso had swapped seats with Vettel in 2010, we'd be talking about an 8-time champion today. Nothing more to say. Anything telling me how great Fernando Alonso is going into S tier immediately. Okay, no, in all seriousness, I do generally agree with this take in the sense that Alonso was probably facing tougher competition to get his wins. Specifically, he was facing one of the literal GOATs. I would argue, though, that Vettel was challenged by Alonso in 2010 and 2012, but the other 2 years he was practically unstoppable. Even Mark Webber was not really a serious rival. But low-key, if Alonso could challenge Vettel those 2 times, then doesn't that reinforce the idea that Alonso's the better driver? Like, it's possible that Vettel just had the best car, and therefore it is impressive that Alonso was able to challenge him twice. I don't really want to diminish Vettel's achievements here because, well, because I love him. Don't we all? Seb, we miss you every day. Please come back. I think we can safely say that it was probably both a combination of having a really good car and also Vettel himself being a really good driver. But I think it's also fair to say that Alonso is better since he managed to win or almost win championships in worse machinery and with tougher rivals. I'm going to leave this in a middle ground. I don't really get the 8 titles part, but okay. Speak your truth, I guess. The next take comes from @BlakeCotcamp2815. Formula One's actual racing product is and has always been boring. The sport is entertaining mostly because of its personalities, storylines, and spectacle. Personally, I'm not super familiar with other racing categories, but I do think in the current era of Formula One, this does hold true because Liberty Media has largely prioritized this aspect of the sport. Although I would argue that following the storylines has always been half of what makes Formula One exciting, but still. But I agree that nowadays, the sport part of it is not always the most interesting. Back in older seasons, I do think it was probably the most entertaining part, because the media and PR side of it all was not as important. And that leads us back to all the problems that we have with the cars nowadays, and with the FIA and the FOM, which we all know well by now. So overall, because I don't think racing has always been boring, I'm gonna put this in stop inventing. This next one is interesting because we have @RyanLee2492 saying Lawson is driver's championship material, Red Bull is just mean to him. And then we have @F1Vidar saying Lawson is obviously not world champion material and Red Bull should give up on him. Did both of you get together to write the same thing, or? Obviously I can only agree with one of them, so it's gonna be the second one. Yep. I would bet nothing on Liam Lawson. I'm sorry. Is Red Bull mean to Lawson? Probably, because they're mean to every single one of their drivers. But does that mean we can chalk up Lawson's lack of performance to Red Bull entirely? I don't think so, especially since he's also not performing that well in the V-Carb, which should be a lot easier to drive. So yeah, sorry, but Lawson is not world champion material. Take 2 is going into I've never looked so good, and the other is looking like Ferrari levels of delusion, I think. The next one is from @MorganAnderson9647, who says, Monaco needs a Joker lap configuration. It would make the race so much more interesting and challenging. Honestly, how sick would that be? Think about it. You get to skip the Nouvelle chicane on 1 lap of your choice. Fuck it, we ball, George Russell style. It could be something else, but I think the Nouvelle chicane is the perfect spot for this. Extremely base take, my friend. The next one is from @melon479-I1L, who says, it was a bad decision to replace Imola with Madrid. They should rather have replaced something like Monza or Monaco. And I also think that a German Grand Prix should be brought back. German Grand Prix part, hard agree. At least Franz Hermann was taking care of the Nürburgring. But the other part is not it, chief. Listen, Imola was great and it will be missed, but replacing Monza with Madrid? Absolutely not. Even Monaco is not the right answer, in my opinion. Frankly, the right answer is probably not to have Madrid at all, but that's another topic entirely. Maybe what they could do is rotate Madrid and Barcelona, kind of like how they did the Nürburgring and Hockenheim. I could dig that, but yeah, bad take overall, sorry. The next one is from @Morte, who says, "It isn't the water, it's something else entirely. Wink." Gross. Next we have two similar ones, but I'm gonna count them as one. @LevelSismic-L2K says, Lance Stroll is extremely underrated and is actually better than 75% of drivers on the grid. He's just been driving a horrid car. Just look at how well he does in the rain. And @Zap_Games, who says, we all hate him because he's a Nepo baby, but Stroll has never been the worst driver on the grid. Folks, I hate to say this, but they're right. It's true. Lance Stroll is not a terrible driver. At least, not all the time. The thing with Lance is that most of the time, he is pretty bad. But then, once in a blue moon, he's like a werewolf, except instead of turning into a wolf, he turns into Ayrton Senna, completely obliterates everyone, and then goes right back to sucking. How or why this happens? We may never know. There was even a point in time when he was a pretty decent driver. It's just clear that nowadays he doesn't care anymore and relies on his daddy to keep him in a seat that he no longer deserves. And I think that's also part of why a lot of us don't like him. Also, I feel like saying that Stroll is better than 75% of the grid is a bit of a cop-out. Like if we put Lance Stroll and say Isaac Hadjar Rookie of the Year in the same car, I would hope that such an experienced driver as Stroll would be able to win. But can I confidently say he would? Not really. But overall, yeah. Unfortunately, this take is pretty based. God, this sucks so much. @BMBMB Morgan says, track limits should always be the curb, not the white line, as the curb is still part of the track. I'm gonna be perfectly honest right here. When I first started watching F1 way back when, I also thought that the curbs were the track limits. Like whenever a driver went over the curb, I genuinely thought they were doing something illegal. It's just, if curb not wrong to go over, why paint it in danger colors? So I think I get where this take is coming from, if that's what it is. I'm gonna put this in smooth operator just so I can feel better about myself for being dumb. @FunnyDude119 says, Lewis Hamilton isn't as good as everyone thinks he is. He's just had tremendous luck with teams. All I'm gonna say here is that my brother, who is a Formula One encyclopedia, read this take and he gave you homework. He said, go watch Brazil 2021, the Singapore 2018 qualifying, and Bahrain 2014, and then come back. Sounds like delusion to me. @much_corner_4483 says, the Lotus liveries from mid-2011 to 2015 were mid, as the gold was more of a beige, whilst the one from the start of 2011 had an actual gold color. This one specifically is one of the best liveries in all of F1. Well, let's take a look, shall we? Here's the 2012 Lotus livery as far as I could find, which looks pretty shiny to me. Here's 2013, which looks like a pack of jamón ibérico or something. Literally spot the difference. Here's 2014, and here's 2015. Yeah, I agree, these are pretty mid. And for 2011, I assume you mean Lotus Renault, because there's no way you're saying this is the best livery. However, this, I like this. Look at that shine. My god, this would put the FIA today into a coma. I do like this a lot, however, calling it one of the best liveries of all time is crazy. When these exist, I'm sorry, but no. I'm putting this on I've Never Looked So Good though, because it was a good design take, and I love a good design take. @UselessMoose says, Las Vegas is the best of the 3 American tracks. This person did not come to play. I just have 4 words for you. Circuit of the Americas. I definitely agree that Vegas is better than Miami, which is not hard at all. But better than Coda? I don't know, man. I really like Coda. The elevation changes, the wind changes, the non-straight straights. We love a good non-straight straight in Formula One. The inspiration from other tracks. Am I a joke to you? Although, to be fair, this is gonna be only the 3rd year that we have Vegas, so we don't really have a lot of evidence to go off of yet. And I have enjoyed the 2 Vegas Grand Prix we've had so far, so my opinion on this might age like milk, and I'm prepared for that. But as of August 2025, I can't back this. I'm sorry. @Seri.SV99 says, Williams in 2025 have been more disappointing than 2023. I'm a Williams fan, and I really enjoyed that inconsistent car a lot more than this one. All the languages in the world, and my man chose to speak facts. It is truly beyond me why Williams saw that they landed on a good, nay, great car in 2025 and then said, you know what, let's stop working on this car entirely. Bet it all on 2026, where unless things go miraculously well, we're probably not going to be one of the top teams again. Williams, my team in Christ, you need to stop doing this, please. I can't keep coming out here and defending your shitty decisions. Getting rid of your point-scoring car is a Ferrari-level choice, and I can't handle that. 1000% agree with this opinion. I left the 3 hottest for last. At W4Zell says, Oscar and Lando are both equally mediocre compared to Max, Lewis, Charles, and George. The MCL 39 is just that good. Now this is a spicy one, folks. I can see where you're coming from because it is the first time that both of these drivers are finding themselves in a truly great car, whereas those other 4 have been in a top team for a while now and they know how to handle the pressure that comes with being at the top. So I can understand the mediocre allegation. But I think this year they've both gotten a lot more comfortable with their positions. Lando doesn't bottle poles nearly as much as he used to, and Oscar seems to have found the consistency he was lacking. I don't know if that's because they're not scared of competition from other teams anymore, or because the car is truly so good that even Logan Sargent could get in it and win, but I'd like to think it's because the drivers are getting progressively more confident with being at the top. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't back this one, sorry. At Squeaksing My Shit says, I don't like Piastri. The guy seems nice, and whilst his maturity, professionalism, and clean racing style seem to appeal to a lot of people, to me those same attributes are what makes me dislike him. F1 is at its best for me when there is some emotional element to it. Piastri is just so well behaved and level-headed that the sport becomes dull to watch. Honestly, I can't say I disagree. Hear me out on this one. Hey y'all, my light died in the middle of this, so please excuse the change of lighting. Oscar Piastri is one of my favorite drivers on the grid, and I think you all know this, but his lack of emotion is my least favorite part about him. He has the emotional expressiveness of a chair, the vibrant personality of corporate Memphis. I know that's just who he is, and it would be very difficult and unnatural for him to change that, and so I'm not necessarily asking him to. But I do agree that he's so dry during races that it doesn't provide a lot of entertainment. Like, his reaction on the radio will always be the same whether he wins or loses, and that will be, good job, guys. Like, thanks? I'm supposed to emotionally resonate with that? However, I would not go as far as to say that I hate him because of this, because I think his racing style is so good that it compensates for his general dryness. So yeah, I agree that the emotional aspect of F1 is a huge part of it, and Oscar doesn't really deliver on it, but hating on him for that feels a little extreme. But I'm putting this in the we are checking, because if he becomes a multi-time world champion in the future, maybe the sport will become really boring as a result, so then you might be more justified. And finally, the last hot take, courtesy of my brother. Daniel Ricciardo is overrated due to how funny / charismatic he is. Ooh boy, that is pretty scalding hot. I'm sorry everyone, but that's a hard agree from me. Straight into S tier, not much more to say. Listen, I love Daniel as much as anyone else, but let's be real. His racing contributions are completely dwarfed by his personality contributions. Sure, he has 8 wins and 1 in Monaco, but the reason he'll probably be remembered is just as a cool dude who made us laugh a lot and have a good time. Which, mind you, is not a bad thing. Every great driver has something unique that they bring to the sport, and sometimes that's not in the driving itself, but what they do outside of the car. And that just happens to be Daniel's case. We miss you, Danny. Please come and say hi sometime. That is the final tier list of your unpopular opinions. I really want to thank everybody who commented on my post, because so many of you replied, and all of you had interesting takes. I just couldn't fit them all in this video. So if people are interested, I would be really down to do a part 2 of this in the future. But in the meantime, let me know what you thought of this video in the comments down below. And please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Stay fueled, and please go touch some grass. Some of you clearly need it.